Hi class. So this week we will talk about addiction like video game, social media, depression from the internet, gluttony, and to make it short, I have 3 interviews this week. I have Dr. Stacy Hoffman. She's a clinical and forensic psychology. I have Eileen. She's a friend of mine and just went through the whole breast cancer treatment. She's okay now. She's well now, but still have to take medicine for at least 5 years. She's on the path of recovery. And I have some interview from the children from my CCD class. So I don't want to talk too much. So here we go. Thank you. Hi class. So my theme this week gonna be about addiction. And can you guys help me out? Is any of you guys in here addicted to game or social media? Daniel?
Yes, I am.
Why?
Because it's fun.
It's fun?
Yeah.
Isn't that interfere your your everyday life, school? Oh my gosh.
So funny. Ask my sister.
Is he okay?
What do I do at home?
What did he do at home? Be honest.
I literally
Is he really addicted to games?
I play Fortnite, Brawl Stars, Clash Royale. Brawl Stars.
He watches like TV when he's alone in my parents' room.
Oh, whoa.
Really?
But the PS3's in there.
Sometimes he's FaceTiming people.
Oh, FaceTime Maddie, bruh.
So basically you are addicted to game and social media and all that stuff, right, Daniel?
His girlfriend and biddies. His girlfriend.
And what?
His girlfriend.
Oh my goodness. So do you do your homework and stuff at home? You don't do your homework?
I'm a senior. I don't have homework.
Oh my goodness. Can someone tell me why is people nowadays so addicted, especially children, so addicted to game?
It's fun. It's fun. Yeah. It's fun.
Parents, they expose kids early to like technology, and so because of like the early exposure and their early childhood, they're so used to it. It's like now a habit. So now like everyone thinks it's mandatory to have like technology in their lives.
Just staring at it awkwardly.
But isn't that unhealthy for the children?
There's actually been studies that gaming can actually help the kid develop and pertain. Gather information because it helps them focus.
Clearly, gaming helps for him.
So then, if you're pretend you're focused on the game, right? So pretend I'm playing like.
But Daniel, but if you're sitting there and playing game all the time and not doing your homework, that's not healthy.
Obviously, you shouldn't be doing it before.
What?
Until you're done with your homework.
Uh-huh.
So if you're playing games, Ben and Kevin, back you.
Okay. Can you tell me why children are addicted to games and social?
Lazy and want to have fun.
I feel like it's just because this generation grew up with technology. So like, so they don't have anything else. Yeah, before they go to school, they're already on the iPad playing. Like before like the age, they're already at home watching TV, or like on the computer, or like playing on their mom's phone. So they grew up with it. And they just
So what can we do to prevent them?
not let them.
What?
Not let them use technology.
Not to give them the phone.
Encourage them to go hang out. Encourage them to read. Hang out with their friends. Maybe like not like get away from house.
But by choice, not by right.
Okay, sounds good. Anybody? Yeah. Can you tell me why children now they are addicted to games so much? Why?
Life is boring.
Life is boring?
See, kids play sports, they don't play as much games, right? You know why? Because sports are fun.
Is that right?
Yeah, and if kids don't play sports, they're like, oh, that's kind of boring, so they play games.
So isn't that interfere your like homework and stuff if you're just sitting there and playing game all the time?
But then again, homework's boring, so that's why they choose games.
Do you guys? What about social media? What do you think of that?
Because see, the brain wants information, right? And social media gives a lot of information back because there's a lot of like news, there's your friends talking, there's stuff.
So tell me, if you're on that phone all the time, will you pay attention on anything?
I pay attention on my phone.
Mm-hmm.
I pay attention to like news, politics, world peace,
Politics, yeah, I'm part of that one.
or I can do like music, anything.
You got really into politics?
Yeah,
Yeah,
because-
government shutdown
yeah,
is pretty fun.
100%. Trump, watching Trump is pretty
Watching
fun.
Trump is really fun.
Sure.
Why he's so fun? Why he's so funny?
I mean, just knowing about what's going on in the world is probably a good idea, right?
Yeah?
Yeah, being more aware. You
Ah.
can like, help people that are in like third world countries and stuff.
So, okay. That's good. So what do you think about children nowadays that they're addicted to game and social media? Kelly?
I don't think they're addicted. I just think that it might just be how like
Can you guys tell me that why children in a modern culture nowadays that they're so addicted to game?
so I think our education system it's way too they follow a formula instead of trying to be engaged with the children and so but like obviously children like their brains don't work the same way as just like a simple formula like they need how do I say
Creativity and adjustment
yeah
to what
yeah because they grow quickly and like it's like obvious because like you know how like from like a 4-year-old to a 5-year-old like obviously the toys that they will like or they like to play like it's obviously very different. I think it's the same towards like how they learn as well like they, I don't know how to say it. It's like
everyone's different in the way they learn.
yeah and if you think that everyone's the same they will get
Like
very
some kids will catch
discouraged.
on fine because their brains are like made to like follow the formulas and it makes sense to them, but some kids just don't like.
Yeah.
So I guess like games is a way to like escape all that and like go into like a different reality that they want their reality to be like. Because in games it's mostly like creativity and you build up your own world or like something in your own image or how you want it to be. It always goes the way you want it to.
Okay.
Like
Also, it's way more interesting than just school, you know.
Oh, okay. What do you think?
But
Okay, go ahead. Why children addicted to
games.
yeah, to game. And so, what about social media?
Oh, social.
Like,
I think with games and social media, I feel like it more has to do with like social standing. Like, there's a thing called a Finsta, for example, where like people put on their best face or like best pictures onto their account to show people. I feel like it has to do with like relations and how they want people to view them in society. And games also plays a part to it because like nowadays in this like modern society, people use it as a way to like kind of like relate to other people because they treat it as like kind of like a joke or like an inside thing, like to joke about. Like there's viral dances and games or like funny like pictures and things from games, and so like it's kind of like cool or like following what's in trending, like
in trending? Yeah.
I also
Okay.
just think it's entertaining. Like a lot of the time, it's not that deep. Like you just like to do it, and you do it, and you do it for a long time.
Okay. But what happened if you when social media got out of hand, like it can ruin somebody else's life.
Yeah, I think they really get too deep into it and they get obsessed with it.
Yeah.
It becomes their reality. More like you don't deal with the outside world as much, but you deal with so much of like keeping your status up that you forget about everyone else, like your actual reality self. Because you try so hard to do that.
people have to like learn how to take responsibility of what they put online and what they do. So like that's more on like just how they got into it.
Because okay, so because like online it's so much easier to like insult people because you don't actually see them. So I think a lot of people just like, yeah, they just say whatever they want.
Okay, thank you, you guys. So tell me why is children today? Some children are addicted to social media.
They want to feel connected.
Feel connected?
Feel left out.
You don't want them to feel left out, huh?
Some FOMO.
Philip?
because they don't like develop like actual like social skills that like applies to real life. Like it's better for them to communicate through a screen rather than actually facing
It's like
someone
an
like
easy shortcut.
Yeah.
And you can talk smack online and they can't do anything unless like they trace you back.
Hi, Stacy. Can you tell me what is your profession?
Sure. I'm Dr. Stacy Hoffman. I'm a doctor that does psychiatric evaluations on people that have a number of different mental health issues, to include addiction.
What kind of addiction or legal case do you have?
Well, I've been qualified as an expert in over 2,000 trials in the Commonwealth of Virginia, and many times they are criminal cases where people have been charged with doing criminal acts related to being under the influence of drugs, and some of them are custody cases where parents are at risk of losing custody of their children because they're having issues with addiction.
Wow. How are those addicted like usually how can I say, like how do you when you encounter them, how do they feel about you about it? I mean, what is their status, like how they're well, let's say this, just tell me like the cases that you had to deal with these kind of people.
Well, like I said, they vary. Some of the criminal cases, again, a lot of the people that have been charged, for example, I just had a case with a 19-year-old young man who came from a very good family, and he had taken a lot of Xanax and gone to a local gas station with a mask on and a pretend gun, and he took the money, he robbed the gas station, and he the next day did not remember doing any of it. Some of these criminal acts people are committing while under the influence. They don't recall what they did, or they have vague flashbulb
Is that
memories.
because, do you think, is it because of some of the medicine that they're taking or the drug they're taking?
No, that's exactly why. And I do want to say that one of the biggest concerns in our field right now as it relates to addiction, there is a class of drugs called benzodiazepines, to include things like Xanax, that people may start out receiving from a doctor, a psychiatrist, their primary care doctor. And benzodiazepines are highly, highly addictive. Wow. People need to take more and more. And so many of the cases that I see, people started out with a prescription and then they need more and more. And it's gotten to the level where they have committed criminal acts, buying drugs off the street, or they're buying heroin is, and the problem right now with the heroin is since 2016, there's a lot of fentanyl. A lot of the cases are becoming fatal because there's fentanyl in the heroin.
Do you think the addiction is on the rise?
It's not only on the rise, but I think the fentanyl, the fatalities is becoming even more fatal. The time between when people start using the drugs and when something horrible happens, I think, is becoming condensed. It is much shorter interval between the onset of when they start using and when they either overdose, need intensive medical treatment, rehabilitation. And I should say private substance abuse treatment is about $35,000 a month.
Wow. And
many facilities, the best facilities that I refer to, they do not accept insurance.
Oof.
So if people do not have $35,000 a month, for about 4 to 6 months, they end up in lesser facilities.
What do you think, how in a society have to deal with this to make it better?
Well, I think as a society, the first thing is that we need doctors to stop being the drug. Like, they need to be much more cautious about what they're prescribing to people. I think that we need better intervention earlier on. There's a lot of research that shows the programs in schools, the DARE program, really doesn't work very well. Those outcome statistics are mixed at best. So I think we don't have, and part of it is a lot of the people using drugs have mental health issues that are not treated, and they're medicating to try and cope with their mental health condition. And so mental health services in this country need to become much more available.
Okay. What religion are you? Stacy?
Religion am I? I went to Christian school
Okay.
when I was growing up,
Okay.
and I have one Baptist minister in my family. I went to an Episcopal church in high school,
Okay.
and so I Christian, I guess.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Do you think if Christian can help with this addiction problem in United States today or anywhere?
I think the help could come from a lot of places, to include a faith-based approach.
Good. Yeah. Okay. Okay. Well, thank you, Stacy, for your help. And thank you for the interview. It's very grateful.
Sure.
Okay. Thank you. Hi, Eileen.
Hello, Jackie. How are you?
I'm good. So we're in the coffee shop and just hanging out. Eileen, I have known her for quite a while.
It's been a lot of years
10
now.
years, yeah. So I know that you just battled with breast cancer a couple of years ago.
Yep, I was diagnosed on March 17th. It was St. Patrick's Day in 2016.
Wow.
And I had surgery on April 22nd in 2016. So
You are all cured now, right?
well, they don't give you the all cure until after 5 years, but I've been going regularly back to the doctor, and there's no signs that it's recurred. So I'm considering myself cured.
Oh, God bless you. Can you tell me your experience that you know, been through with all that, and how your family, have dealt with it?
Well, I mean, it's a shock because as a woman, as you know, you go for your routine mammograms, and to be honest with you, I had been a little negligent. I had skipped the prior year. There was no history of breast cancer in my family. So I was meant to have gone the year before and kind of put it off, but I had a prescription.
Skipping.
I know I shouldn't have, but whatever. It's probably better that I did, and I'll explain why. So I had an order from my doctor to go and have the mammogram done that was expiring in April. So I made the appointment because I didn't want it to expire. And I went in there just like any other time, thinking it would be a normal routine mammogram. And they said if there was anything, they'd call me to come in on Monday. And I didn't expect a phone call, and then I got a phone call, so I had to go back on Monday. And they did an ultrasound and some more films on the mammogram.
Is that when they found out?
Well, no, that
something?
they said that they wanted to do a biopsy after they looked at it. So when they want to do a biopsy, a lot of women I know have had biopsies, and it turns out to be nothing. Yeah.
I
So
had
you
one.
so even at that point,
Thank
I
God
wasn't.
it's negative.
I wasn't really nervous. I thought, okay, fine. They have to go look at it. They have to go look at it. But the biopsy was uncomfortable. My sister came with me that morning.
I'm sure.
And then so I went in. It was a young doctor, and he did the biopsy. He took 8 tissue samples, and I was surprised that he took so many tissue samples. And then at one point he got up and he left the room when I was finished. So I hopped up and I looked at his notes, and he wrote in his notes, because I said, how's it look? He said, well, we won't know until we get the results. But after he left the room and I looked at his notes, he had written on his notes, suspect carcinoma, so he thought it was cancer. And then he told me that he would call me with the results. Well, Saturday morning, because this was on a Friday, he called me Saturday morning as I was walking into Target with my 3 kids to tell me that it was positive for an invasive, they call it an invasive ductal carcinoma. So, and then I didn't know what to make of that, because then then the appointment starts. So you have to go see breast surgeon and an oncologist, and so it was traumatic. It's frightening.
So now, when you find out all that, how would you feel? Will you feel depressed?
Initially, I think I was a little angry.
Yeah.
I
Were
was
you
angry.
of
was just
God or angry of anybody? Or
I was
angry of...
a combination of things. No, I wouldn't say I was angry with God. I was angry with myself for having skipped the year that I told you I didn't go.
Yeah.
And not that would have made a difference, but I was a little angry about that. And then I was just angry because I thought, oh, this is going to be so inconvenient. And what if I have to have chemotherapy? And what if my hair falls out? And what if I get sick? And so I was a little angry, and I think I was nervous.
Yeah. Were you ever blaming God for
allowing
you
you to get sick?
Yeah, or going through this, or even thinking of talking about the subject of suffering.
wouldn't say that. I mean, not in this particular instance. I would say my anger towards God comes out in different ways, and I know you and I've had conversations, and I've shared.
So, by the
with
way,
you.
what religion are you?
I was raised Catholic.
Oh, okay.
I went to Catholic school for 16 years.
Wow,
It's a long
16
time.
years. That's a pretty long time.
But I will tell you that I'm an agnostic at best. On a good day, I'm an agnostic. But I was raised. I was raised.
Terrible.
No, it's true. I was raised in it. My mother was devoutly Catholic. I mean, I was really, really religious. In fact, when I was 8, I wanted to be a nun. I know you find that hard to believe, but it's true.
Really?
My anger is more at the institution as opposed to the. I hold the institution of the church
Okay.
more accountable for certain things than any God. For example,
Okay.
I don't necessarily like my anger was always at the
I
church for things
understand.
that they allowed happen.
I
And you
understand.
know where I'm going with this.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
there
yeah.
was a lot of things that I was not happy about, and how the children were
Totally.
molested, and how the church, even as high as the Pope, would move priests around from parish to parish. That's where my anger came in. But no, I wouldn't say I was ever angry at God for things like that. I've been in my life. I've been angry at God for other things. When you see horrible things happen to people,
Yeah.
and I think you and I have shared this conversation once before,
Couldn't
where
agree more, yes.
so it's hard to reconcile as somebody who was raised Catholic. It's hard to reconcile a God who is a loving, compassionate God with some of the things that you see happen. And if you believe, some people believe in miracles, right? That God has the ability to intervene,
Absolutely.
right? So you probably believe that God has the ability to intervene on earth.
Absolutely.
And for some people, they get a miracle. Well, I think the thing that I have a hard time with is if you think about it in that way, and you think that God does have the ability to intervene and help people, there are situations where he should help people and he doesn't, and it makes you wonder, well, if he has the ability to intervene and he doesn't, then is he malevolent? Which means, English isn't your
So
first language. But
sometime in your you're on the path of caring, or sometimes that you feel like you depressed and you mad, or like any feeling that like that you really like why
would something
yeah.
But I never felt that about myself so much, to be honest with you. I never blamed him for anything that happened to me, but I would say there have been times in my life where horrible things have happened to people that I know, and especially with me, it's not so much adults I don't feel as sorry for, but you see children, watching a child suffer. To me, there's a little boy who lived in our neighborhood who had a heart problem that he was born with, and the parents didn't know about it. And when he was 10 or 11 years old, and they're a religious family, when he was about 10 or 11 years old, they went to wake him up, and he didn't wake up because he had died. And you think about a situation like that where, why do things like that happen? Or people who abuse children, why, if I had the ability, if God had the ability to intervene and keep those children from being abused, why doesn't he? Is he malevolent, or is he not omnipotent? Because if you're omnipotent and you have the ability, then why don't you? And I know the church will say, well, it's free will, and there's all of this that's involved, and it's hard for me to wrap my head around that. So
it's really hard for not only you, but I'm sure for a lot of people nowadays, because things like that shouldn't happen to children or to anybody.
Right, it's really hard. If you look at, for example, I use there's a war going on in Syria, as you know, and then of course the horrible situation that's happening to so many people who are being displaced, and you see children and you see them starving, and you think, God, if there was a God, how does he let that happen? That's the thing that's hard for me to wrap my head around. But as far as
okay, go ahead, sorry.
I mean, as far as being depressed, yeah, there were times when I was depressed, definitely. I think, to be honest with you, I think I was more depressed after I had the surgery. Because after the surgery, I had to take the medication. It's called tamoxifen, and they give you this medication that's supposed to suppress your hormones, because my cancer was a hormone-driven cancer. So the tamoxifen puts you into it takes away all your hormones, so you go into automatic menopause, and it just changes your makeup. And I definitely was, one of the reasons I only stayed on that drug for 2 years is because I was definitely experiencing depression. I would just wake up some days and just feel completely despondent, and for no real reason.
How long have you been on, after the surgery, how long have you been on the medication?
I was on it for 2 years, and I went off it at Christmas because I couldn't stand it anymore. And they want you to stay on it for 5 years. But I talked to the doctor about it, and she said, if it's bothering you that much, don't take it. So I didn't. So I stopped taking
But
it.
aren't you afraid that it's gonna come back or anything? You're supposed to be on it 5 years.
Yeah, I mean, well, the thing is though, yes, I should be on it for 5 years, but they put everybody in the same basket. So every woman who's had breast cancer like mine, they put them all in the same basket, but they don't take into consideration things like lifestyle. You know, if you eat well and you exercise and all of those things, they just, so the benefit to taking it has to outweigh the side effects to taking it, and for me that wasn't the case. The side effects were so much worse. So I just decided to go off it, and it wasn't a rash decision. I talked to my doctor, and then my doctor said there are women who don't take it because they can't handle the side effects. So I did, and I go and I get my checkups, but that was
well.
that was tough.
Do you know anybody suffer of addiction? Anybody like alcohol or drug abuse addiction?
Well, I mean, in my family, oh yeah, definitely. I think depression and addiction seem to go hand in hand in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
So if you look at it, I think if people who are depressed, who are looking for something to relieve their pain, tend to end up going to drugs. And it's, if you look at historically what's happening in this country and how many people become addicted to opioids, usually it starts as somebody gets an injury and then they were prescribed the drugs. Not everybody becomes addicted. Some people do and some people don't. And they used to believe that it was because your brain chemistry was affected by the drugs. But if you look at pockets of areas where there's a heavy number of people who are addicted, they all seem to have something in common. And I think what they have in common is that for whatever reason, whether it's socioeconomically they're more poor, there's less opportunity, but I think what they all have in common is lack of hope. They have no hope.
Speaking of hope, hope
so I think they don't have hope, and when they give up on having hope, they're more inclined to think that taking drugs or drinking alcohol is the medication that is going to make them feel better. So, and it's also, I think that kids today, especially just 2 weeks ago, I don't know if I told you the story, my son's friend, his first friend, from when we moved to Leesburg, who he's known since middle school, he took his own life. 19-year-old boy.
Oh my goodness.
And they just had his memorial service on last Saturday, the 12th.
Was he on drugs?
He wasn't on drugs, but he had
depression.
Yeah, depression. I talked to his mom at Summer Lake, and he had been struggling with depression since he was 15.
Oh wow!
And it was, in their case, it was more genetic because her mother struggled with depression. But he had taken medication, he had seen therapists, he'd done everything, and it didn't seem to work. And he was away at school. He came home for vacation, and his mother said when he came home from vacation, he was just a different kid. He was happy and he was pleasant to be around. And so for 2 weeks while he was home from vacation, she said it was like the happiest kid, and it was so nice to be around him and so pleasant. And it wasn't until after he killed himself that they realized why, because he had made that decision that he was going to take his own life, and so that it almost took a weight off his shoulder. He knew his life was going to end, and then he only had to do it for 2 more weeks, so he was happy.
Oh wow!
And that's then that's true mental illness. That's not just giving up. That's just true mental illness. When something like that happens, I think it's really hard. And in situations like that, I don't know. I mean, I know people have their faith, and I think faith is important in a lot of situations for people.
It helps a lot.
But when you're mentally ill, I don't think faith helps you because
that's hard.
It's hard.
It needs counseling. It needs a lot of work.
And sometimes there's nothing they can do. He took medication. It didn't help him.
Sometimes you think I'm good.
You good?
Sometimes the family, if you think if it's family around or would help him better, like his parent or his
his mother's a nurse practitioner. She did everything. I mean, and she asked him all the right questions. But if you're really out to fool people, you can fool them. And I think she was shocked because he did manage to fool her.
That is shocking.
It's shocking. A 19-year-old boy. What makes you at 19? The only thing that makes sense to me is that he truly was mentally ill. Because at 19, if you're not mentally ill, what makes you think that there's no hope? How could there be no hope? You could live another 80 years.
Did you by chance know anyone that any children that suffering from drug, alcohol addiction and depression and end up cutting themselves, stuff like that?
I have a very good friend. Her name is Karen, and I've been friends with her for years now. She suffers horribly from depression, And what she used to do, she didn't cut herself, but she would pull her hair out.
What?
She pulled her hair out, yeah. She would literally pull out all of her hair. She would pull out all her body hair.
Wow.
With the tweezer, she would pluck it all out. And then the other thing that she did was she starved herself, so she became anorexic.
Anorexic. Oh, wow.
So at one point, she was, I think, 27 or 28 at the time. She was 68 pounds.
68
68
pounds?
pounds.
Wow.
And that's just the way, I mean, it's how she deals with her depression. She takes all kinds of medication. She's been seeing a therapist for years, but she just can't break the cycle. And she has OCD, which is obsessive compulsive disorder, and she has depression. And yeah, I mean, it's very hard to be friends with somebody like that.
Oh, yeah.
Because even now,
What is this sick?
it's an illness, but it's really hard because she still is anorexic.
She still is?
She's gone
Is
through
she getting
periods-
help?
Oh my God.
Therapy?
She's getting help, but it's not helping, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
So when she comes to visit me, the last time she came to visit me, I couldn't believe how thin she was.
Wow.
And she looks awful. And she has 2 kids. She has a daughter who's 21, and she has a son who's 16. Or no, not 16, I'm sorry, he's 18. And you know, I always say to her, like, what does your husband say to you? But I think her husband's kind of, he doesn't know what to do.
Yeah.
But it's really hard for her. So I think she doesn't cut herself, but she's killing herself.
Right.
Slowly killing herself.
Yeah.
So.
Well, thank you, Eileen, so much for your time and helping me out on this. This is really depressing. What is it? The theme this week to me is really depressed.
Depressing.
Very depressed. So
It's a depressing thing. You need.
Depressing.
Well, also one other thing that I think is interesting. If you look at kids, at the addiction rates and depression in society now, especially among young people. I was reading an article this morning, and they were talking about how suicide rates among teenagers and young adults is so high. And I think social media has a lot to do with that.
Yeah.
I think, you look at Instagram and Snapchat and Facebook and all these social media applications, and you see the kids, they're always this with the phone.
Yeah.
They don't communicate with one another. They're always on their phone.
Right.
And they post things that make it look like their lives are so much more glamorous than they
Yeah,
are.
I'm so glad that my children is not there yet.
Yeah,
and
well-
I don't allow, another reason that I don't allow them to be on there, because I think it's not healthy. I mean, for adults, I kind of understand, but even for adult, you just have to have you have to control yourself on that too, because I just don't believe that especially when people like hurting other people and it's not.
Oh yeah, the
good.
bullying that goes on, it's terrible.
Yeah.
But the other thing that goes on too is the isolation.
Yeah.
Because if you talk to your friends on a phone all the time and you never have conversation.
Exactly.
There are a bunch of lonely kids out there, and they don't know how to communicate. Because the only way they know how to communicate is in little characters, right? They don't know how to have conversation.
Exactly.
And I think honestly, it's causing a lot of societal problems because these kids feel so disconnected.
Right.
They're disconnected from family. They're disconnected from friends. In many cases, they're disconnected from their church and faith.
Yes.
Because they're just obsessed with what they see on social media, and it controls them. And it's a frightening thing because I don't know where it goes. But I think that's why kids are feeling so lonely and so isolated and so disconnected. That you see higher rates of suicide, higher rates of addiction,
Yes.
higher rates of depression.
Yes.
It's tough. It's tough to be a kid these days.
Thank you, Eileen.
All right, Jackie.
You give
Glad
me
I
a
could
lot
help.
of information. That's help. Thank you very much, Eileen.
All right, take care.
Hi, class. In conclusion, I wish everyone is well. Please seek help if you need help. Don't wait till it's too late. Okay? So God bless and stay warm, stay well, and happy. In the love of Christ. Bye.